Community Preservation Committee meeting, September 26th, here at Town Hall. We'll call the roll for everyone who's here, in case anyone's online. Len?
Yep. Paul? Present. Tim? Here. Myself is present. John?
Yes.
Dennis?
Yes.
And Michael Tubin is not present, and neither is Karen Buse or Betty Kovaco.
Correct. Yeah, first item on the agenda is to adoption of minutes of the August 22nd, 2024 meeting. Did anybody have any corrections or see any issues with the minutes? If not, I would take a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion to approve and seconded. Okay, Glenn?
Hang on a second.
Sure.
Okay, we'll have a vote. Dennis?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Paul? Yes. Myself, yes. And Ed?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in public comment, either online or in person? Anybody online?
No, I don't see anybody.
In that case, our next item on the agenda is to meet with the housing consultant introduction. Lynn Sweet, has she joined us yet?
And she has not yet.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, she did, and I've always said, oh, because there was a waiting room, I just saw that. There we go. Oh, okay.
Lynn, can you hear us?
She's muted.
Hello,
Good evening.
good evening. I just need to get you on the right screen here.
Okay. Hi, Lynn, the committee is here. We're missing a couple of members tonight that are feeling ill, but if you'd introduce yourself and your company to us.
Hi, I'm Lynn Sweet. I'm with LDS Consulting Group. We are based in Wellesley, Massachusetts. The company will be 25 years old on November 1st. Personally, I've been in the field of affordable housing consulting for over 35 years. And the main focus of our business is planning, permitting, and financing for housing development. We work on market studies for a lot of clients. We work on financial pro formas. We represent a variety of clients. We sit on all sides of the table. We are a 40B technical consultant under the 40B program for municipalities. We do a lot of permitting for clients and number crunching and trying to figure out what kind of project they should build. We've been doing a lot of work in downtown gateway cities, helping smaller landlords put together financing programs to sit beside them and fill out their applications and finance their buildings. So when I was, the town reached out to me to do this piece of work, it was something that we're very familiar with doing. We actually have done the same work for Brewster on the Cape when they were also reviewing a CPA application. We have also written CPA applications for some of our clients as well. So I'm really happy to be here.
All right, thank you. The committee, some of our members are new, but we have made a decision at the recommendation of the State Community Preservation Coalition to hire a consultant to help us with any of our affordable housing projects, as they can be very complicated and it's somewhat more involved than just volunteers that are meeting. So LDS will be able to give us a good background on any of the projects that come to us. it'll give us some credibility when we present to, the town meeting and to the other boards in town. You know, we're happy to have someone on board, and, she's also gonna help us, with our, application as far as affordable housing, because obviously that one is a little bit more complicated than our regular, applications for historic and, for the, open space. So we're glad to have someone that's gonna be looking over our shoulders and giving us a hand, and, I don't know if any of the members have any questions for Lynn or comments? John?
Lynn, welcome. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I just want to, I've been on this committee for maybe, I don't know, 11 or 12 years as the select board designee. Were you brought up to date on what occurred with the 3 housing articles that went to town meeting in April?
I am not familiar with that.
Okay. So obviously, you know, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Every time this committee brings an article to town meeting or votes to send it to the select board, FinCom, wherever, it becomes a case study. So back in April of this year, this committee sponsored 3 different articles for quote unquote affordable housing. And the variation of the article that this committee voted on and approved was not what showed up at town meeting. All 3 of them changed before they got, when they got to our, I mean, obviously beforehand, but what town meeting voted on was not what the committee voted for. So we have to learn from those mistakes, and we have to seek ways to improve the process. Because that indicates to me that the process was completely broken. So
Can you can you just tell me sort of what you think it changed and where was the breakdown? Because the Preservation Committee, I'm assuming, makes a recommendation for town meeting warrants. And
Correct.
presumably before town meeting, sometimes they're reviewed by like a finance committee or an advisory board before they actually make it into the warrant. Can you just help me understand the process a little bit more, and where where the changes made on the floor? Like, what in what were those changes and why were they troubling?
well, one of those changes was the former chair unilaterally introduced some information that was erroneous 2 to 3 weeks before the last town meeting. The other 2, initially, what happened was one of the articles, we were under the impression, the committee was under the impression, or led to believe, that we were going to get credit for all 26 units going into this proposal.
Get credit
then-
on the subsidized housing inventory.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Later on, once this article showed up in front of, I believe, FinCom,
Yeah.
it came to light that we were gonna get credit for 0. And then on the 3rd article, what occurred was that the developer, there was 4 or 5 significant variables that changed.
Okay.
Because I think to a certain extent, the developer read the room, it reacted accordingly, was listening to some of the public criticisms, engaged, and then that developer changed 4 to 5 significant variables. And at that point in time, that should have triggered the committee revisiting that article
Okay.
and then voting, and that didn't happen. So to me, Lynn, it is imperative that we go back to formula. And it is imperative that we have a process in place specifically with the construction of the application for affordable housing, that significant variables are in there. How many units are in this proposal? How many of the proposed units are gonna count towards the community's subsidized housing inventory?
Yeah.
Are they rental? Are they ownership? What's the AMI? And things of that nature. That has to be verified by yourself or some individual at the town staff level. And then that has to be signed off on. So that once this committee weighs in on that article, we can be assured that professionals have reviewed it and we are voting on accurate information.
I don't think that's unreasonable.
And
And I think I can help you with that and sort of, you know, the case in point, I'm looking at your application, a detailed project budget, including any revenue sources. Will there be annual cost to the town? So you've got some of the questions here in the current application that I got. It didn't have that level of detail. So we've had a little bit of an email exchange and some of the detail is starting to come in. So I think that what you're asking for is very reasonable, and it is gonna, we'll put a few more bullets in here, and maybe, what some other communities do is they almost like create a scoring sheet or a checklist. So you go through what you've asked for. And, what have they given you? What haven't they given you? Because there was no way on the article that, the information that was sent to me, it was like a concept. So I think we're on the right track here.
Okay, thank you.
And I 100% know how to can advise on the process for getting units on the SHI. So I'll make sure in my review, I can let you know what my understanding is. And as to, based on the proposal, how many units would be eligible for the SHI. And, at some point down the road, we can even possibly, do a little bit more of a training as to how to, the paperwork that needs to be filled out to get them on the SHI too.
All right, thank you. And then the other thing, which I'm glad you're on board with, us to help us, is that when we engage with a local developer and they're proposing another affordable housing, we need to have more data, accurate data. What are the unit costs? Are we truly getting the value for the expenditure that we're putting out? And typically it's in the millions, or it's at least a 7-figure investment. What is this community getting in return from that? And is that basically, does that fit in that unit cost? Is that going to be is that reflective of what we see in the market today? Oak Street, about Oak Street.
No, we didn't fill it in about Oak Street.
So we just. We just had a situation, Lynn, where we had I'm guessing a century-old schoolhouse, small former schoolhouse that was retrofitted to 3 affordable units. One handicap accessible or all 3?
One was handicap accessible, right?
One.
Yeah.
So, is it done yet? Are they done yet?
No.
Okay. So one was handicap accessible unit, Lynn, the other 2 were not. Roughly, what, 400 square foot a piece, something like that? Okay, very small, but the unit cost. Get up there, pushing almost $400,000 a unit. The majority of which came from the Plymouth CPA. There were some ARPA funds and there was a state grant, about 50.
Yeah.
Okay, but we were on, what do we put in, 850, the CPC, 850-ish?
Yes.
Yes, you had a couple.
And it ended up being what, a little over 1.25?
And it's under control of the Public Housing Authority.
Oh, okay, so when
Oh,
you.
was the housing authority was the developer?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately with housing authorities, they get stuck doing this thing called prevailing wages. So they're subject to, and it's not really the wage that they're paying, it's the administrative side that really adds up a lot. So housing authorities, unless they form a separate, 501(c)(3) that's separate from them, their their housing costs are going to be, their construction costs are going to be a little bit higher. You may be 15% higher than a regular developer. But the other thing is for a project like that, there's a lot of energy retrofit money out, like there's a lot of other sources. So, we can kind of look at that too. Like, I think that, what I'm hearing from you is that you may want to be doing more projects. You want to spread your money out, over more projects, and you just want to make sure that the projects that are coming in, as you said, your match or your funds that are coming from the town are reasonable, in the marketplace, and that, make sure that there aren't other sources of subsidy or grants that could be used so that you could spread your money out on more units over time.
So we know that it's inevitable that a developer will approach the committee for more affordable housing units. It's just, to me, we need to make sure that coming out of the box, when this committee initially reviews an article and goes to vote on something, that we know that it is 100%, with 100% certainty, that data is accurate. That's all I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah.
Now, what do we do? How do we leverage your skill set to ensure that this?
It's getting a little
process is
revisionist.
improved?
Yeah. I'm here to do that for you. Like I said, I've been asking questions on the current project. I'm gonna kind of put together my own pro forma based on the information that's provided. If there's data missing, I'll let you know, and I'll prepare a memo for you with my assessment of what's being proposed and potential questions or next steps.
If I may.
This is on, I'm sorry, this is
Yeah.
on South Street.
Yes.
So she's gonna do a review on the bottom of South Street. Okay. Thank you, Lynn.
Yes,
Thanks, John.
yeah, and I think part of it is, and what might be helpful to hear from you, is, the developer is basically saying that the town is buying the affordability of the units. And that, and so, it's being portrayed to me like it is a favor someone is doing to the community, that they're kind of giving you a gift by coming up with this development plan. And that what's in it for the town is the affordable units. And I think what would be helpful for me to hear with, the other projects that you've looked at, and kind of what your operating kind of ideals are, what is really important to you as a committee with regard to affordable housing? And what do you think is a good affordable housing project to invest in? What populations do you want to see served? Do you want to see rental? Do you want to see ownership? Just so that I have a better sense as I'm reviewing this project, if I can look at the numbers and tell you whether the numbers make sense or not, but I can't tell you whether this is the project for the community without kind of hearing what's most important to the community.
Sounds good.
And I meant rental, ownership, level of affordability, families, elderly, veterans, like, what, I don't know if you have a housing production plan. I haven't really looked at it, but you have scarce resources to spread out on a project. And presumably if it's going to go to town meeting, it needs to meet the needs of the greater population. So since I'm sort of new to Plymouth, not to your golf courses, but just kind of, new to the municipal process and what and I'll go ahead and, I'll take a look if you have a housing production plan and see what that says. But, for you as a committee, I don't know what other projects you funded. Are there projects you funded that you're like, this is great, we want to do that again? Or, I just want to hear a little bit more from you if you don't mind. And if you can't answer it tonight, you can shoot me off an email and say, kind of thought about that question, and this is what I think is important to the committee.
Okay,
Every application is gonna be different, whether it's from the housing authority or whether it's from a developer.
Yeah.
So every opportunity for affordable housing is gonna be looked at as a brand new project. The same thing when it comes before the planning board. This similar project that John has brought up, as far as the count, as far as the affordable housing concern, came before the planning board last evening. Now, we didn't even act on it because we didn't receive the traffic report as far as what was going on in this particular development. So it's incumbent upon us and you helping us to ensure we're getting the most for the funding that we put in place. And there is no way that any document should have changed from the vote of the Community Preservation Committee to the town meeting. That's something I haven't heard as far as all of these things changing before. I don't know, you're saying 3 times. Were the town meeting members aware of this changing 3 times at the time they voted? Absolutely not. So there's obviously a gap in the procedure here. It needs to be corrected. Now, I don't want to be a revisionist because, hindsight is 20/20. Going forward, we got to ensure that this doesn't happen. And I don't want to spend the whole night discussing it, but we got to ensure that this doesn't happen. It's not whether I love affordable housing. I do, because obviously I have children that had to move out of the town of Plymouth and go to different places because they couldn't afford a place to live in the town of Plymouth. So we got to ensure that the best and brightest as far as the school system and our children, firefighters, nurses, the whole 9 yards have the opportunity for workforce housing is what I call it. I don't call it affordable housing. I call it more workforce housing.
Okay.
So I think we have an ability here and the opportunity to do things going forward. And obviously, we don't just consider affordable housing. We do community preservation and everything that comes along with the CPA Act.
Yeah.
So with your help, we just want to be steered and make sure that all the documents in place, everything is in the queue and it's done properly. And the residents of this town, and the investment made through the CPA Act is protected. That's my feeling, as far as I'm concerned.
Glenn,
Yeah, I think, the application as it sits today is a lot of words and not a whole lot of opportunity for content, and I think we need to separate the words from the content, but I think that's important. I mean, that application needs to be as exhaustive about a particular project, whether it be open space or, I know you're in affordable housing, that it may not be a one size fits all. And I also think, helping us, especially in the affordable housing space, because that we go through that process, we look at it, and you help us make sure we have not missed anything. And not be in such a big hurry to say, okay, we're gonna approve this. I mean, this is a lot of money, and we want to get as much bang for our buck as we can. Because we're here basically as the stewards of this money that the residents have given us, and we should be good stewards, not just somebody that rubber stamps projects.
Yeah.
That's just.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and I will tell you that I actually have a land and infrastructure cost, construction cost, developer financing, CPC financing in one email, which is more than I had 24 hours ago. I have actual affordability levels by, but I don't have it by unit type, so I need a little bit more detail on that. So, there's some confusing information here that he's telling me he has market rent, but the units are at 80%, 30%, and 80% of AMI. So I think this is going to be a lot of back and forth to sort of get the information that we need to be able to properly, evaluate this. Working on it. Give me a few more days.
Anyone else? Dennis or Paul? Oh, Lynn?
Lynn, this is Lynn. So my question to you is, what it sounds like is in the application itself for
Yeah,
the affordable, that we can highlight some of these things that you had to ask, that you had to ask the developer for,
Yeah.
that information, so we can include that in the application, because what my concern is we have an application and we have like a deadline that happens with each of our town meetings.
Yeah.
And I think what the committee needs to know is how do we sort of incorporate what's needed with an application, and then by the time it's submitted to us, how much time are you gonna need to evaluate something, then to get back to us so that we're in time for a deadline for town meeting?
Yeah,
So that's
good
just something that
question.
I think that we could ask of you, is what kind of
So
timelines look
what's the
like.
what's the timeline today of when applications are due versus when town meeting occurs?
So right now, we actually, we don't really have a timeline out on our website. It was something I think that we were gonna
Yes,
talk about
tonight.
tonight.
Yeah.
We have a deadline of December 18th for our annual town meeting in the spring. So we were gonna talk tonight about what, what the deadline was gonna be for applicants to get something into us with a turnaround time for recommendations, probably sometime late November, early December, because we have that deadline of December 18th.
So in order for something to get into the warrant, it needs to be decided by December 18th.
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, I certainly would in the future, if that's what occurs, would want you to have all of your applications in by September 30th.
Right.
And then a preliminary review the first couple of weeks in October. And then give, the developer like to the, the end of, October to kind of get you follow-up information. And the application should say, this is just our preliminary list. We may have, follow-up questions for you. And so presumably you would have your deadline, you do your initial review. Maybe you would meet in person with them and ask, either you can get documents or you can meet in person with them and ask them questions. But I would think that if you need to have everything done by December 18th, and assuming again that there's another committee that it needs to go in front of, like the finance committee or an advisory committee, I would think that,
Yeah,
I would think,
this is just for Community Preservation Committee to make their recommendation to submit an article for the warrant. The article, once it's submitted for the warrant on December 18th, they have to have all of their backup materials associated with that recommendation submitted, and then the selectmen have, like 5 days to turn around that warrant to give to advisory and finance and others for review.
okay,
So
so
it
that
isn't
happens
until,
after December
yeah,
18th.
that happens
you
like in
could-
January.
Can you send her the dates? You can, right?
Yeah, I can
And
send you the
That's
dates.
okay. So we're sort of trying to back into, what would your process look like? I still think a September 30th, application period is really good because it kind of gives you 2.5 months to kick the tires, and gather more information and make your recommendations. So I don't know why you would keep it open sort of longer, because there's going to be some back and forth with your committee. And you're going to, kind of be weighing pros and cons of all of the different areas too. And especially if you're going to interview and meet with all of the different, I don't know how many applications you get in a year. But I would say we want applications by September 30th. We want any follow-up by October 30th. we'll do whatever interviews and final, recommendations in November.
Yeah.
So then you can have everything, ready for December 18th. I don't think you should put your back up against the wall, I mean, do you want to say October 15th? Maybe. But you do definitely 100% need a cutoff. You don't want to get something 2 weeks, like on December 1 that you have to make a decision on. But I do think it's a good practice to have an application date. I think that I can send you some additional bullets for affordable housing developments of additional financial information that we would want to see. And sort of getting back to what the developer sent, sort of who made the decision on this project that it should be all 1-bedroom units. To me, that feels like you are targeting single people and not necessarily workforce, family, like, are you okay with giving all of that money away for one or two person sort of household sort of thing? Or do you want to see family units in that, or 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms? And that again is sort of, I'm trying to find out from you, what is important to the community. I don't think it's even an elevator building. So that kind of, to me, is kind of like, well, why would you do something that appears to be targeted towards seniors, but not even have an elevator in the building sort of thing? So I just didn't know if that ever comes up in discussion with within your committee or within the municipality about what populations should be served.
Well, I know we do have a housing production plan, so we can get that.
Let me look at that. Yeah.
Okay, quite well. And we can do a quick survey of the members put together offline later on and send that along to you, that, all of our thoughts.
Yeah, to me, it just seems like kind of a really big miss to not have a variety of unit types to serve, a variety of populations. So I'll take a look at that. And I just didn't know if that, and take a look at the housing production plan. So I can kind of give you some more dates and sort of, deadlines, generally for you to follow. And I can certainly give you some more feedback in the future of, what people should be, turning in. We may even want to, actually put a, I think you sent me, we might want to attach a budget for, for them, them to sort of fill out sort of thing. But you have a lot in here. So I don't want you to think that you've done anything wrong. Except you're sort of almost like not enforcing your own rules of what you're asking for, or maybe you're not 100% sure about what you should actually see. So it looks like you've got your process very well set out here on page 10, and so maybe that's where we want to put that into deadlines. Your beautiful flow chart that you have here. I mean, I see that for the open space. I don't know if it applies to everything. So, yeah, so we can,
we will send you along a lot more information, so that you could, email back to us. And we'll exchange information until we get to the point where you're satisfied that we're happy.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, there's sort of 2 tasks here. One is to help you, with your application kind of going forward. And the other is to review the project that's in front of you. And sort of just, the good news is there's plenty of time for both. At least there's plenty of time to review the application before the December deadline and try and get some information. And I'll take a look at your housing production plan and sort of see where, you know, the town's priorities are, because I think we want to make sure that the money that you're planning on expending, the taxpayer money, is in line with this plan that a lot of people spent a lot of time kind of putting together. But I can assure you that as requested on page 1, there was no financial and operational budget. So does that help as an
Yeah.
initial
Yes,
hello?
very much. Yeah.
And Lynn knows where to find me. So if if you have a question or a document that you want to send along, please do.
Quick question, Mr. Donato?
Would you allow me to speak for a moment?
Yes, yeah, we can be quick.
Yeah, it's just. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm Al Donato, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 17, Red Book. I just want to go quickly back to 16C. That article was dead in January because there was a lot of misinformation about that. And people felt that AD Makepeace owed the town the 103 units and that we were giving them 3 million. What they didn't understand was that we were buying down from the 80%, a portion of them were going from 60 to 40.
Yeah.
It was like, and I have to say this 100 times to get it out into the public, and as people, it's quelled the talking points. They were angry about that. As that battleship turned around, finance committee, they understood that we were getting 60 and 40%, a portion of that. After 15 years, with the 80%, we're getting $3 million worth of rent credit. We would go further out to get the 60-40. And my point was, at some point, that investment you gave AD Makepeace is coming back with Mrs. Jones enjoying that rent credit for the next 20 years. So that was an important piece. We were unique because the developer had to do X amount anyways. In closing, we're trying with the housing, affordable housing's not working because they're trying to put up homes that are 700,000 or 800,000. Not happening. Chances are, maybe, I'm not gonna speak for AD Makepeace, but they may have to do a second project like that. In order, it's the way it goes. It's just the way it is to bring the costs down.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's not an AD Makepeace project in front of you right now. This is something from last year.
No AD Makepeace projects, no.
Yeah,
There may be,
no problem.
there may be times in the future that I have a conflict, but for now I don't.
Okay,
Okay, understood. I thank you very much, Lynn.
thank you. Thank you.
Great, nice to
Thank
meet all of
you.
you. Bye,
Thank you, we'll
Lynn.
be in touch. Yeah,
Okay.
bye.
And that brings us to our next item on the agenda, which is to talk about the CPA application and have a discussion. And I think, John, maybe all you will agree that part of our problem, or the biggest problem, especially the last time meeting, was the CPC liked to try to help everybody up until the last minute, almost up until the morning of town meeting, to try to get something done, and that has to end, like we were just recommended to us tonight. We have to have a firm cutoff date. I was gonna recommend the last Friday in September for the April town meeting, and the last Friday in May for anything that would go into the fall, which we probably should only be looking at that when there's something that pops up that we don't have a chance to wait until springtime.
If I don't make that date, then it doesn't go before town meeting.
Right, that's it.
End of
Yeah.
story.
Right.
Yeah.
We won't accept it if it comes in after that date. You can try to get it next year, but we just can't.
Or the next town meeting.
Or the next time meeting, yeah. We
Yeah.
need at least 2 months, I think, to look at it and get the right answers, and trying to be nice and holding articles and waiting until the last minute cannot continue. on
We do the
that.
same thing with the planning board. They come before us, we're going before the zoning board next week. That is not my problem.
Right,
I didn't schedule this, you did.
yeah,
Yeah.
So if you don't get a decision tonight, you'll have to extend it at the zoning board of appeals. So if they don't meet the deadline, they don't meet the deadline. Enough with acquiescing and causing issues or situations at town meeting,
yes,
because we're trying to do our best for them.
right.
Yeah, I think it's important that we put up a schedule in the terms of not so much hard dates so that we don't have to change it, but there's a certain time frame that it has to be provided to us. I think this business of stuff not being there for everybody to see and know, because we got a note from somebody asking about when the articles have to be, they should be able to go to the website, and I think it's important that we have that up there, and we are given enough time to review these. You know, the warrant opens at a certain date for Springtown meeting, and we need more than a couple of meetings to do this, because it may be a process. I think as far as the application, I think we take the existing application and throw it away. I think there's more there about. It's like the life story of the CPC committee in the town of Plymouth. I think the application has to be very precise, very informative. Basically, there's not the same application for open space as there is for, you know, it might be there's a cover page that's an application with all the kind of basic, and then there's a second page, because it seems ridiculous to make us print that application with 20 pages of the history of the CPC in the town of Plymouth. And I think, Lynn, can help us make sure we do that well and think about the things that we haven't thought about, or I should speak for myself, I haven't thought about. But I think that's very important that we do that, because we need to know, like she said, it was brought up, why are we paying for 1-bedroom apartments? And, you know, why is it a building that doesn't have an elevator? So that basically precludes anybody. I'm surprised that he didn't have to have an elevator. I thought the ADA law said he had to have an elevator or some kind of lift in that. So that's just my thoughts about the application.
I know John had you have some strong thoughts on a couple of things that we need to make sure that application has.
Yeah, obviously specifically on the affordable.
Yeah.
Lynn's gone, this Lynn is gone, right?
Yes.
So. I don't know, I've been here for 10 to 13 years, right? And every time there's been an affordable housing application in the past, the number of units has always corresponded to the number of units we were getting credit for. And obviously, that didn't happen in the industrial park.
Right.
When that was initially voted, that committee, maybe beside the chair, we were voting under the assumption that we were getting credit for 26,
Yes,
and that turned into 0.
right. Because
That clearly has to be delineated.
Right.
How many units are in this proposal? How many units are in this proposal? X. How many of the proposed units is this community gonna get credit towards its SHI?
Right,
That has to be delineated.
Right.
That can't happen again.
no, no.
Because I can tell you right now, I don't think it wouldn't have advanced. It would not have advanced for this committee if we known it was 0.
Right,
I mean, John, just aside, I mean, if you look at, here's the application today, and it's got all this verbiage, it's got very little space for content about the project. It's more about what it should be done, but it's not in the form, so I don't know if they create a separate document, they put all this in. But in my opinion, all these questions are legitimate questions, but there's no place to answer the question. If you just look at it, it's right there. I mean, you know, like I said, the past is the past, we need to do what's going forward.
yeah,
We need to do that, so that's just my, you know, my opinion about this. And I also think that, you know, there is a rule that says that they're supposed to provide so many copies. Well, they're not doing that, we need to enforce that, the town shouldn't be shouldering the burden of printing these out. You have to have paper, sorry, you can't do so much of this in electronic form. So that's just my, and I agree with you, John, that's what the other land will help us do, to make sure we're asking all the right questions. And we're getting all the right information.
Well, she's supposed to review that and come back with a better list, correct?
Yeah.
Right, and as Tim says, you know
Right.
what, if you don't provide the information by the cutoff date, we're sorry. I'm not trying to sound sarcastic, but we're not gonna nursemaid you. We're
Mr.
not,
Chairman, I guess we're gonna leave at 7:00.
okay,
okay, yeah,
we're not gonna nursemaid you to have you do your work, so that's,
And then-
so sorry. Nothing.
Lee had suggested that the individual, I forget her name, in charge of community development, would review each application one and verify that all the data was correct, and then sign off on it. So we knew that a professional staff member had reviewed this.
Yeah.
Could you ask her if she sounds like she does a few of these. And she processes them, she must do other towns. All right, why not
She
copy
said-
another town, which she said, or at least own another towns that she thinks is very productive,
An application.
another application. in
Let's
another
see,
town.
let's see that.
One that works.
Yeah.
And then you can hone it down if there's anything with it.
Well, obviously, every application can be, as far as, community preservation of land, it's a different application.
That's right, that's what I was saying.
So there's more than one application required in the process, I would think.
Maybe
Why
there's
not
like-
use other people's? that
Maybe
have
there's
done it
like a
already?
one sheet that has a checklist of all the things required for open space, everything required for housing, everything.
Well,
And
required-
historic
Or you
preservation,
may have a cover sheet that's of you requesting funding. And then, you know, if it's like we've done these things where you go, if the answer to this question is yes, jump to number 9. If the answer is no, go to number
I
7.
get your example, I know.
Yeah.
She's
That's-
gonna come up with a
that's
list.
right. And you're right,
Look through it.
right,
Right.
maybe there's another
You might
application.
say, hey, Hanson has a
Keep us-
great one, or.
Or
Someone
Yeah.
else must have reinvented the wheel for us, is what I'm trying to say.
Could be-
Shouldn't we be setting the example?
Brain for the
Ah,
fire.
copy what works.
Well, that's what I want, maybe
Huh?
I'll get
Copy what
the,
works.
things so we can move
Somebody
on.
else
Copy
do
and
it.
paste. Let someone else do the work.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I think one of the biggest things is the deadlines, and I have a couple proposals that I'm willing to take a motion to move those, and that would be that, the last Friday in September would be the deadline to turn in any applications that would be going to spring annual town meeting.
That gives
That would be our
us,
first.
gives the town and the selectmen 2 months, and us 2 months.
It gives us 2 months. It gives CPC 2 months, and I think that's what you need, because you look at the application, you follow up with an interview like you did the last time they come in, but then it provides you time to, if it's a housing project, you give the information to her, and she has time to review it and come back with recommendations for you, because maybe you're gonna follow up with them, you know, to get other things or whatever, so you need like 2 months' times to actually recommend something to town meeting.
Is there a disclaimer in these applications, just because you submit doesn't mean you're gonna be approved?
Oh, yeah, no, I think there's something in there already, I mean, it's an
Yeah.
application process, so I mean, they're not guaranteed.
I mean, we don't have the funds.
Yeah, no, yeah,
You don't have the funds, you can't approve something, you don't have the funds.
yeah, so I think if you guys vote, you know, make a motion to vote on these deadlines tonight, at least that gives us sort of a guideline on.
And we can get those posted.
Yeah,
So
And my other recommendation would be that the deadline for the fall town meeting would be the last Friday in May.
no.
motion so made.
Can I just ask one question? I know you need to go. If we do this now, have we basically precluded anybody from submitting an application for spring?
Yeah, I
Because
think,
tomorrow,
Well, I
they
think
would have
that-
to have it done by Sunday.
we've received one application
Okay.
so far, so we have one. My recommendation to the committee is we sort of take a pause and we look at everything that we have on the table,
Right.
and we decide as a committee,
Okay,
based on cash flow requirements of the projects that are out there, what we're gonna use the fiscal 26 revenues for.
sounds good to me.
Do I have a
Okay,
motion?
you have a motion.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Second, by Paul. So the motion is that the deadline would be the last Friday in September for spring and the last Friday in May for fall. Then you take a vote, please.
Okay. Dennis,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
myself, yes, Tim,
Yes,
Paul,
Yes.
and Ed.
Yes,
Okay, so that,
that's for that. And then we'll put the other, yeah, at least we have the biggest part out of the way. Now, next item is the budget. As Lynn was suggesting and making a recommendation to us that we probably need to take a pause. I don't think that there anybody in this room. Yes, Tim.
you're talking about the budget, how much money we have available to even approve any future projects, where we're at right now.
Yeah, so I mean, the budget, I would come up with a budget of what the annual revenues are for fiscal 26 with a recommendation on what we should use that money for with the existing projects that we have on the table.
Right, so if you could do it for me and probably for the committee is, if we didn't spend a dime in the next couple of years, when will we zero out?
You wouldn't.
I mean,
If you said couple, meaning 2 years, we would not zero out.
I'm talking about, I need to know if it's 5 years to zero out, if it's 20 years to zero out, okay? I want a complete story as when we can start actually looking at projects without being in the red is what I'd like to know. Not that we wouldn't,
Right.
but we need to know what that number is.
I would like to see that document include like a timeline of the revenue stream. A timeline of our expenses that are not project related. And then look at the projects we've approved to date and when we think they're gonna come due for payment.
Right.
And see what our balance is and see what we have to go, because clearly. We're gonna have to go out and borrow money. Because we have now committed to more projects than the revenue stream is gonna create. At least in my opinion, for the next 5 years, maybe more. So I'd like to see that kind of, and that's a document that lives.
It's a complete analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cash flow.
Some of those
document.
payment deadlines right now are kind of, we have an idea when, but they're definite payments, you just don't know. Is it gonna be June next year, or is it gonna be August, but one has a pretty good idea.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll put something together and probably do it either at your like your second October meeting. Or like first meeting in November, so that we have a recommendation, so that you'll have a recommendation for that deadline in December.
Okay.
The application that we have in front of us, I'll make appropriate. It was an internal application from a town department, so I'll make the appropriate copies and email it to everyone for our next meeting.
So I can get my head around this a little bit, though, I hadn't heard this yet. We actually can't pay without borrowing what we're already committed to, with the income that comes in from the.
Yeah, so we definitely have to borrow for
Wow.
several of the projects that we have on the books.
Not all.
Not all.
That's where the analysis comes into play that we're asking for.
And we will get figures, you will give
Yep.
us new members that don't really
Yep.
know
Yes,
how much.
yes, I think all of you.
Right, I know we put one cent ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are-
Yes.
Huh?
I don't like to say yes to things, I don't know.
Karen, is somebody else up there? Might be.
No.
It's just.
Yeah,
it's us.
Karen called in, Karen called in sick.
Okay, I could just see it right here.
No, sorry. Thank you.
It could be me.
Some of us have white hair.
And we'll budget, we can move on.
Just for men, gray.
Okay.
That's what I use.
Next item is town meeting articles, we've been to the, Value and Finance Committee, the Select Board. Committee appreciate chairs, we have caucuses coming up. I don't think all of them are listed yet, there's a majority of them, but not all of
I
them.
got it.
Once I have a schedule of all of them, I can email it to Ed and then you guys can.
Yeah, I'm up for a couple of them at least.
Yeah.
I just
I'll
gotta
try to
see
do
that
whatever I
the
can.
schedule.
You know,
Okay, yeah, I do, there may be a few dates where I won't be available, just. Time for some surgery.
hopefully nothing serious.
Yeah, and we know that David, the grant came through for the cranberry bogs.
Yes, yeah, so that acquisition will end up being only 115,000 for 90+
Yeah.
acres.
It is
So we
right.
get the dates and stuff, and we're gonna have a little cheat sheet. Of information on each one of them.
A one pager,
Yeah,
like a paragraph for each one, so that we know.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, this project, how much, when
Yeah,
first payment, second payment, or any payment.
Right.
Yeah.
it'd be nice to know the number that, hey, if we approve this thing, how much are we paying in finance charges and interest,
Right,
right?
Yeah, if you do short-term borrowing, right, there's gonna be some finance there, right, and every dollar we pay a bank for interest is a dollar we can't spend on one of our projects, but
That's where one. Comes into play.
sounds like we're all on the same page.
Yes,
So, yeah, when we get the final, Lynn's gonna be watching for the final
I'll send
caucus
the
setup.
caucus schedule out. Yeah,
I think we have some that are already scheduled, early October, so. Time meeting preview is gonna be October 10th at the Great Hall at 6 P.M. And of course, town meeting is October 19th. And Lynn, you have some invoices?
so I don't have any invoices tonight. I just
Okay.
like to keep it on the agenda just in case.
Sure.
There's any invoices.
That's a good thing.
But, I do have, and I actually kept on here, so you announced already about the grant, that David got, so that was good news. We are status of some projects,
Mhm.
so, I should have printed out the budget report for you, but I apologize. We are finishing up, like Spire Center is basically closing up. Stevens Field is closing up. David actually has just awarded a contract for the Jenny Pond dredging and the replacement of the footbridge. So there were 3 CPC articles that did funding towards those projects, so we're gonna be starting to work on that project. And John, you mentioned the Oak Street project, so we are finishing up with that. We're actually coming up with, we have to amend the grant agreement for the ARPA funds, because we have a separate agreement with them for the ARPA versus the CPC funds. So council's working on that. We're gonna get that out to them. And we're withholding 10% on the ARPA, and we're gonna withhold 10% on the CPC until they're finished and they have occupancy. So. That's,
I have a little,
Report?
something to say about Oak Street.
Good.
If you.
Yes, Dennis, you have the floor, man.
It's getting bad.
No, don't say that right at the beginning.
No. The GC and the plumber and electrician, everybody, tomorrow is their day that the punch list will finish. So that's one good thing. Next Wednesday or Thursday, they are going to hook up to the sewer. And the water will be on. After that, I know the housing authority has been doing applications that they've been interviewing locals. One veteran, and I believe that's the one that's gonna go into the handicap. So they go in there. I don't believe that we are on board with the inspection until the 3rd week of October. So we can get our occupancy permit. After we get that, Chris is telling me that by November 1st, leases will be signed and it will be occupied, if everything goes good. The maintenance department has been out there. All they're gonna do this year, as far as the outside and the landscaping, is just clean it up. In the spring, they're gonna do some plantings and things of that nature.
It's a basement going on.
Right, so what was the bad news? You didn't say.
No, that,
It
okay,
wasn't it?
so that's good, that's good.
Is the basement empty? Is the basement empty?
November 1st,
Is the basement-
people will be in there, you'll drive by and see lights.
Lights at night.
Is the basement open?
So the basement is, the maintenance department, will be down there.
I
for the next few weeks.
think, Dennis, there needs to be a ceremony.
Yeah,
We have
well,
people moving in, there should be a little ceremony. Richard Quintal out front.
yeah. More publicity for the house.
We should all show up and welcome them to their new home.
Absolutely.
Because these are people that, you know, all of us live this life, and these are people who, living life every day is a struggle. And while this hasn't been the best process to get these people a place that they can call home, they now have a place they can
They
call home.
can. And the list probably goes down from 1,100 to.
1097.
Yes,
Yeah,
you know.
we do our best, right? Do our best.
Yeah.
Are we doing new old business?
Into housekeeping, I'll hit that one first, in the housekeeping, this particular article, my request is, we had a member that was the Pilgrim Hall representative, and due to some changes that were going on, had to step down, so I had quickly polled the members, and John, Len said he was willing to step up. I'd just like there to be a motion in a second, and we vote in.
For who?
Len,
I'm back,
I'm lost.
I'm back to work. I can't get over to Pilgrim Hall.
So John was the
All right.
representative, so he can't do it.
Right, because you're back to 40 hours, 50 hours a week, or 60 hours.
Len is
What is it?
Here,
So Lloyd's good?
so Paul's moving.
and they are at the point now where they're doing weekly construction meetings at 11 o'clock on Thursday,
Yeah.
so it's.
So he's taking over, this
Yes.
young man over here.
Yeah.
The cute one that we saw on the screen a little while ago.
And the motion was by Paul.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by John?
The motion was Paul, second was John. Okay.
John, yeah, ready?
Ready, go. Dennis,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Myself, yes, Tim,
Absolutely.
Paul,
Yes.
and Ed.
Yes. Okay, new and old business, anyone?
Well, I've been to one meeting so far. It's quite impressive. It's the same people who are doing the they're doing the work they did at the Spire Center, ZVI, and it's the same historic committee. But what I want to tell you is I got an email from the executive director, Donna. And in that email, there was a paragraph that basically said, you know, this is not a public meeting. This is not a public entity. Therefore, anything that is discussed that's in detail, like budgets and stuff like that, is based, it's essentially an NDA paragraph. So I asked Ed and I wrote a note to council. I haven't heard back. I understand she's very busy about, if I see something that just doesn't pass the smell test, what am I supposed to do? Now, you know, I need some guidance because I'm hoping to be there more than just somebody sits there, drinks the tea, and eats the donuts. And, you know, it looks like it's being very well done. It's an amazing building. You know, the little time I've spent there, it's an amazing building. And I think what they're gonna do to it is gonna make it so much better, but I'm just concerned about that. You know, in my mind is the Oak, not to compare it to Oak Street, but you know, something, we've given them a lot of money and we wanna make sure that it's being used appropriately, and so I'm just looking for some guidance on that.
Anyone who's been a rep to any of these projects before run into this? Probably not, right?
I mean, I could go dig out the email and show you what it said, if you need to see that.
Probably.
So you can't say nothing, even though you're in the meeting, you can't say anything to anybody, is that what
Why
you're
don't I
trying
do
to say?
that? So instead of, maybe I misinterpret, let's do this, give me a second. I've got lots of emails and lots of emails.
So you can see, it may be that anything proprietary
Well, I'll,
can't. That's wrong.
And that's what I'm.
Obviously, you're overseeing expenditure of money.
I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on TV, right?
Yes, yeah. That one?
Matlock. That's a woman now, though.
Yeah.
She was the tutor for the water boy or something, right?
Yes, yeah.
Was it the water boy or was it, who was that?
I-
She was the tutor for. Oh, it was
No, I
the
think
big
she-
guy that played the line.
No, I think
She was the tutor.
saying his mother and.
She was the mother, yeah.
Here you go.
She was
It's
the
this-
mother.
No,
it's
the
this
lineman that was the black guy that.
okay,
uh,
it's that,
Oh,
can
that one,
you
yeah,
see
was
that?
on
It's that,
Blindside.
Blindside, she
Yeah.
was the tutor, right?
She was, yeah.
let me open it up in a separate window. It's this.
Oh,
paragraph-
different movie. I never saw that.
Okay,
I'm
all right,
sorry.
back to the
You
meeting,
should see
guys,
that,
back to
it's
the
a good
meeting,
movie.
guys.
Sandra Bullock,
All right,
Sandra Bullock.
here's the paragraph that I'm referring to. Can you see it or you want me not?
Can you
to?
blow it up a little more
Read it.
for us old guys?
Oh, I'll read it to you. It says representative from the Historic Commission and the CPC attend our internal meetings as observers reporting back to their committees. As I'm sure you're aware, the museum is a private independent organization, not a public entity, and our meetings are not subject to public meeting law. Please remember that any communications, minutes, media materials are confidential. We always happy to receive requests for any specific information a committee might need, of course. So I read that says, you know, anything that I receive as minutes or any budgets or anything that I get as an email, it's part of a packet of information. It's part of, I'm not allowed to disseminate that to anybody. Maybe I read it wrong, but that's how I read
It just means it won't be public record, right? And it was,
it. So I sent that paragraph to Ed and to Kate asking for some clarification. I haven't heard that. But it's just, you know, I think, you
I
know,
know that they have to provide documentation when they, in accordance with the grant agreement
Right.
with them, so when they submit the reimbursement, they provide, you know, information.
Yeah.
and grant agreement to something signed with them, so we could probably get a copy of that to you. So you-
okay. I mean, I just, like I said, what triggered this question for me was not to compare it to Oak Street, but Oak Street, you know, after the fact, we find out that, you know, all of a sudden they need more money and then they're, I don't know whether they're coming back to, you know, whatever, I just be proactive, trying to be, you know, like I said, I don't want it to just be me sitting there eating the donuts and drinking the coffee. I want it to be more.
Save those for me,
What?
save those for me.
Okay, be more, you know, add value to this process wherever I can. So I just wanted to make sure I was on the right page.
Anything else, new world business?
No,
Just, I wish you the best in finding the replacement for Chelsea and getting that.
Yeah, actually, we're gonna be interviewing on Thursday.
Yes.
Ed is gonna join, me
Matt
and,
Tavares.
and Matt Tavares, the
From
chairman
HR.
of COPC, and someone from HR will be with us. So we have 3 candidates that we're interviewing. And a couple of them have, I mean, they all look good. so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but one definitely has experience.
Right.
but one last thing before we adjourn, can we put out the schedule for the next,
Yeah.
next, we go to the end of the year, it's great.
Oh, I'm gonna
Open
leave
meetings?
very shortly.
Yeah, so the normal schedule is, so October would be October 10th and the 24th, so it's always the
Second,
second and fourth Thursdays of the month.
Okay.
And then if the chairman feels that we don't need to meet, we will let you know.
Okay.
So it's always the second and fourth Thursdays of the month. So October, it's the 10th and the 24th. November right now looks like the 7th and the.
They're too far,
Wow.
I can't get past 2 weeks from now.
So at least October the 10th and the 24th. We
Yes.
may need to adjust the schedule as you get closer to December and depending on application. You know what I mean? Like in any given year, you might need to adjust a little bit depending on the workload, but I think this year will be fine.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm still having flashbacks from last night, so.
So we have a motion to adjourn.
No.
Oh, yeah, public comment, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay, one was just clarification because I was like, oh.
Come on up and sit down.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Was just, the motion, the last Friday in May for applications for the fall.
Yes,
And the last Friday
September,
in September for spring.
for spring. and
Thank
summer.
you.
Yes.
Okay, and that's my caucus, so we'd
Oh,
love
good.
someone then. I'm not the chair, I told her I'd help her out and drop that off. And John, just not to be in an argument, but I've gone to these meetings for 2 years and the one on for the Coalition for the Homeless.
Yeah.
I was at all those meetings. And I think at the first meeting when it was talked about, they didn't, the count was uncertain. But at one point, you all knew that it wasn't counted, but nobody made a motion to like withdraw it because there were no credits.
You're correct,
You know what I mean?
Right.
In
but the initial,
the
you're correct.
initial,
The
the
initial
initial
vote.
presentation didn't really address it. And then I think maybe a couple weeks later, Bill came back and said, there are just no credits. And also they had the chair, not the director of the coalition came in and talked and said, because it's a federal state
Transitional.
thing, they don't count them. And also, I think it's because they're in transit, right? It's
Yeah.
not a temporary housing,
Right.
and that's why.
And that's why. it-
So that
And
was
one thing
why.
we did find out, because we've been working with them, on that project, is, our restriction in that property will be in perpetuity. It's not like a 30-year, 50-year.
Oh,
like
that's
they
good.
talked about,
That's
so.
good, because that is
Yeah.
kind of, that's
That was
great.
a little unknown at first too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this was trying to rush and take applications.
Right.
close to
Oh,
the
it
deadline.
was like, there were so many applications.
When I
Yeah, the
was-
process that this is all gonna slow down
Yes.
is excellent.
When I was on the outside looking as department head, I had to have all my paperwork in at a certain time. And CPC had articles that were saved.
Yeah, and as John has brought up and Les has brought up as a town meeting member, we have grave concerns about 13 million in borrowing
Oh,
and
yes.
bringing grave concerns, not just me, but in our caucuses, so it's good that it's like, I think you said somebody's, whether it was you or you
Cooling off
said,
period.
no,
Okay.
pulling in the reins, kind of
Yeah.
like, woo, whoa, baby,
Yeah.
that's not.
Put the cows back in the barn.
Yeah.
No, that's the horse.
I'm not a farmer.
We can't change the past, all we can
Thank
do is
you,
a
thank
better
you.
job of managing.
Oh, that's a horse of a different color.
Oh, you've got them all tonight. Motion to adjourn, Tim?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
I.
Aye. Thank you.